Today, we will discuss how to do a dissertation. So, I'm presenting. The title of our lecture is Structure of a Dissertation. Our objective is to introduce you to writing your dissertation. Doing a dissertation is compulsory for students in higher education. As an example of a dissertation, you may see Gargi Lahiri's doctoral dissertation, Social Determinants of Reproductive Health Among Married Slum Dwelling Women, a case study of Uttarpara slum. Follow this link. Structure of a dissertation. This is the basic structure of a dissertation. First chapter, Introduction. Second chapter, Review of Literature. Third chapter, Conceptual and Methodological Foundations. Fourth chapter, Main Findings and Conclusions. And next is bibliography. This is not a chapter. Additional input. You can give appendix, tables, graphs and charts, photographs. Authors may increase the number of chapters as per their discretion. Now let's discuss the structure of the dissertation in detail. Introduction. In this chapter, you introduce the subject. As the old saying goes, first impressions last the longest. So, you should try to make a good impression at the very beginning. You may begin by citing a relevant quotation. Example, say if you are writing on the importance of self control, you may begin with the following quotation. Author Juan Didion said, water is important to people who do not have it, and the same is true of control. Origin of the study. Then discuss how your work originated. Why are you interested in doing this work? Brief review of literature. Next, acquaint your readers with your field of study by citing some relevant literature. If you are doing work on suicide, cite some relevant texts like Durkheim's Suicide, a study in sociology, encyclopedia articles on the psychology and sociological aspects of suicide, etc. Objectives of the study. It is very important to state your objectives in the introduction and work out these objectives in your thesis. Major research questions. State the major research questions for which you will seek answers through research. Chapterization. Finally, give your reader a brief overview of your work by discussing in which chapter you have done what. The second chapter is Review of Literature. Review of literature is a very important part of the thesis. The purpose of the literature review is to inform the reader of the field in which you are contributing. An overview of others' work. You may criticize their work on the basis of your own findings. To highlight the gaps in knowledge, if you wish to make an original contribution to knowledge, you must find out the research gaps, and that calls for deep thinking. How to do it? Deep study of materials relevant to your study. Summarize the works, classify the works, analyze the trends in the literature. Think what sort of researches could be done but are absent in the literature. How to find the gaps in knowledge? Well, construct a table. In the left column, Briefly summarize the available literature. This is the left column. You briefly summarize the available literature. In the right hand column, you state areas in which you think the literature is weak or absent. This is the model have suggested to my research scholars. They have been immensely benefited. Conceptual and methodological foundations. Social scientists must develop a conceptual framework within which they will work. You have studied a variety of theories like functionalism, conflict, phenomenology, ethnomethodology, symbolic interactionism, postmodernism, etc. Choose one of them and explain your research findings on the basis of your conceptual foundations. Methodology implies the philosophy of logic of research. Your method of study will depend on your methodology. If you adopt positivist methodology, you can do sample surveys, construct hypotheses, and test them. But if you adopt interpretivist, phenomenological, or interactionist approaches, then you have to do small group research, adopt observational methods. Main findings and conclusions. In this chapter, you state the results of your research. What does your data tell you about your field? If you have developed hypotheses, have they been tested? What was the outcome? After discussing your research, you are ready to draw conclusions. First, summarize your research, pointing out your objectives, major research questions, and findings. Show how your findings are similar to or different from others. Answer these questions. What is new about your findings? How will your study benefit other academicians? Have you any leads which future researchers can follow? Bibliography. Here you should include all texts which you have read in alphabetical order. Appendix. This is optional. You may include questionnaires, scales, and other matter which could not be included into the text but are nonetheless important for your dissertation. Tables, graphs, and charts. These may form part of the appendix, but it is better to incorporate them into the body of the dissertation. Photographs. These too may form part of the appendix, but it is better to incorporate them into the body of the dissertation. Numbering and titles. Number, number and give titles to all tables, graphs, charts, and photos. Tables should be identified by table number. Identify graphs and charts by figure number. Photos should be identified by plate number. Sources. Give sources of all tables, diagrams, and photos. Mention source even if you are the author. Writing the dissertation. The entire dissertation must be computer generated. All tables, graphs, charts, photographs must be incorporated into the text through computer. No manual incorporation of materials in the text is allowed. Style of writing. See my lecture social survey and report writing. Follow this link. Language. Write in the language in which you are conversant. Language may be English or Bengali in case of MA students. English only in case of MPhil PhD students. Spacing. Type in double space. Proofreading. Before finalizing your dissertation, proofread it chapter by chapter, correcting obvious spelling or grammatical mistakes. Dissertations with spelling mistakes, poor quality grammar will create a poor impression of the examiner and you may be penalized. Font. In case of English, use Times New Roman font. Font size 12. In case of Bengali, use Brinda font. Font size 14. Ethical issues. Pay attention to ethical issues while writing your dissertation. Do not copy any matter verbatim without giving references. Avoid the charge of plagiarism. It is advisable to get your dissertation tested through Urkund software available at the Influence Center, Bardwan University Central Library. Remember, the amount of similarities with other texts noted should be less than 10% as per UGC norms. Apart from plagiarism, other ethical issues may also crop up. For this, See my lecture, Ethical Issues in Social Research. Follow this link. Format. Follow this thing. Format. Sociology Department, Bardwan University requires MA and MPhil students to submit a soft copy of their dissertation along with hard copy or printed copy for examination purpose. Prepare two copies, one for yourself and one for the examiner. Use CD-ROM or pen drive USB port for submitting soft copy. PhD candidates should abide by the norms set by the research section. Do not submit soft copy of dissertation in MS Word. Convert it into PDF. Now let's summarize what we have learned. Introduction, origin, objectives, literature review, major research questions. Review of literature, categorize literature, point out the major trends, find the research gap. Conceptual and methodological base, adapt a theoretical position. What is your philosophy of research? Link your philosophy of research to your method of study. Major findings and conclusions. Discuss your major findings before you conclude. Summarize your major findings. Draw conclusions. Provide these to future researchers. Bibliography. Write down all books and research articles used in your study in an alphabetical order. Appendix. Incorporate questionnaires, scales, psychological test results, reports of board meetings, etc. Tables, graphs, and charts. Incorporate them in the main text. Photographs. Incorporate them in the main text. Thank you.